Well, I'm sitting at the bridge, Blue Water Bridge. US is on the other side. This is still Canada, Sarnia, Ontario. Very foggy today. They were saying the fog was pretty bad around Toronto today. So let me just show you what my load is like. Like as I mentioned before, it's a factory machine, so it's legal size, just heavy, and it sits on the blocks. Over there I have like 6 blocks under it, and I had to use my both tarps, see, because my tarps don't have flaps. And I had one 12 by 12 top that I bought, and I tried to use that one, but I tried to put it in the front and it did not work because it has that part that sticks out. But next time I know I can put it in here, because see, all I need here is a small top to cover the back, and then one top 24 by 24 is enough to cover the part that sticks out. And I'm running with all 3 axles down. That's where my flip would go. Yeah, oh, that's the small tarp. That's 12 by 12. No lights, no flags required because it's a legal load. It's 55,000 pounds. So once I'm on the other side, I would have to drop my pusher axle. And by the way, this is, I don't know if you guys notice on the front of this trailer, right? That's where the extension of flip box can go. And based on the spec sheet I found for my trailer, this thing supports a 23-inch flip box. So it goes in here, and so basically it would allow me to move this. To move this right now, like on this truck, I can only move it over here, right? If I have a longer slider, you know, I can basically with this, I can even get away with a set forward axle truck. Because this guy, the Peterbilt guy, with a setback 367, he's having trouble accommodating the tanks that I need, 150 gallons. And I'm still surprised by Western Star. Western Star guy managed to squeeze in 250 gallon tanks and a pusher axle in a 244 wheelbase package. Big tanks, right? Whereas Kenworth T800 had trouble. Now it's like 254-inch wheelbase, and Peterbilt is the same. Like even the old setback axles, right? And so, actually, after I was thinking about this, so I sent a message to the Peterbilt guy. He said maybe we should look at the set forward axle, because I remembered about this flip box. It was always in the back of my mind, because you know, if you move the front axle forward a little bit, right? That gives you more room, because if you increase the wheelbase on a setback axle truck, you know, it just becomes long, you know, because you still need room, let's say for those big fuel tanks. And one thing I wanted to mention is that there are places on the internet where you go to do your research, right? And I remember I spent countless hours online searching for information when I was getting ready to buy a Kaufman trailer, you know. And as I mentioned, I did pretty good. Well, I did make mistakes with the trailer and the truck, but not so much with the trailer. Well, the truck I pretty much nailed like the major components, right? But it's a very difficult thing to get it right the first time, especially when you're not sure what you're gonna be hauling. And quite a few forums on the internet, especially those there where you can go to find some information regarding heavy haul. There's some very rude and vulgar and racist people. Specifically, I'm talking about a forum called Truckers Report. And I made a mistake yesterday. I was reading with interest some of the posts over there about heavy haul specs, and so I made a mistake of posting something about my current truck and what I'm trying to get in the next truck. And specifically, I put down the axle ratio as 373, saying that with a big torque, 2050 torque, it should be enough, even with 373. Especially when you can run one gear down in the top gear. And I was called all kinds of names. It's not like a discussion where people want to share information. It's like they turn everything personal, and instead of talking about the subject, what I was really interested in, like the specs, and because my opinion was different from theirs, right, I was called all kinds of names. There were some racist remarks about my thick European accent. One guy called me an idiot. And I'm okay with being called an idiot, because if I was smart, I probably would not be posting questions on Truckers Report, and probably would not be driving a truck at all. But I probably would be, let me see, I would be either a freight broker or a Mac engineer. But since I'm not that smart, right, I'm okay with that. But what really hurts is the thick European accent. Because you know how long it took me to learn to speak English better than you? I started when I was 17, but I still cannot get rid of the accent. It's not me, it's because if some people know anything about learning foreign languages, it's very important when you start. Like if you are 5 or 6, let's say your parents bring you to the country, and you were 6 or younger, you will learn English. And people will never know that you were not born in this country. But anything after 6, you'll have an accent, very slight until probably you're 10. But after like 15 years, basically your brain, your language learning capabilities, they get worse and worse. And so I was lucky that I started when I was 17, because you see, like a lot of people don't realize how much work it requires to speak like this. And few Russians speak English at this level. I'm talking about Russians that I meet in Canada and the States, especially if you were not trained professional like I was, right? I was a teacher of English. So it took a long time to learn. So it hurts, but there's nothing I can do about it. Like I'm talking about the accent. So, but I'm just saying that some of these forums, if you guys are looking for information, like specifically Truckers Report is one forum where I would not recommend to go. Like it's okay to read, because there's good people there. You can read, you can find some nice information, but as soon as you try to post a question or start a discussion, it's a bad experience. So Truckers Report, shame on you. Now, where were we? So yeah, one question I wanted to mention is that one topic is that is always very important when you spec a heavy haul truck. It's torque and axle ratio. And mostly in the States and Canada, if it's a drive-in truck, like regular truck, you would see about 1650 torque, pounds per foot, right? If it's a heavy haul truck, most of the time it's 1850 or 1860, let's just say 1850. And very few people use 2050 torque, like the maximum usually that you can get in Northern America. I know other countries like Australia, for example, and Europe, and countries in Europe, you can get much more horsepower, much more torque, but that's not the case here. Over here, 605 horsepower Cummins with 2050 torque is the max you can get from in a brand new truck. And 2050 torque is rare because people don't appreciate the importance of torque, but my previous truck, International, actually had that torque, because after multiple modifications I had done on it, I found that Caterpillar could do tuning using the dynamometer, and it was amazing. The guy showed me the printout. I asked him to move the torque, like he could change the band, you know, where you have the torque and the maximum horsepower. It was like the best 800 Canadian I ever spent was to go to that shop in Concord, Ontario, where they could do these wonderful things with the Cat C15 2004 ACERT. But so that's what I had. I look at the printout and then I feel, you know, with the bottom of my pants that the truck drives incredible. Like my wheels were spinning with 3.73 ratio, but with the regular step deck trailer going up, I still remember it had so much, you know, force at the wheels. And so that was my question. My question on that stupid forum was if 373 would work with a 2050 torque engine. And transmission and axle ratio, right? Everybody knows they act as a multiplier. Like it's a theoretical number. You're never gonna have like 100,000 pounds of torque at your wheels, right? But it's a good kind of like way to judge if you'll have enough startability in your, let's say, like bottom gear. Let's say here, I copied gear ratios for 18 speed, 13 speed, and 10 speed. And of course, the difference between 18 speed and 13 speed is that you can split the first 4 gears. And so the most strongest, most powerful gear in 18 speed has a ratio of 14.4, whereas because that's low, low, then it's low, high, right? Low gear. And then the first gear is pretty much the same, 856 in an 18 and 859 in a 13. But if you look at 14.4, right? And I did some calculations. Basically, I take the torque, I multiply by the axle ratio, and then I multiply by 14.4, which is the gear ratio. And I did some numbers over here, depending on the torque, 1850 and 2050. And it looks like with 2050 torque and 373 ratio, you would have more torque at the wheels than with a 1850 torque and 410 ratio. So as far as startability goes, you can do these numbers yourself. Just take torque times axle ratio times gear ratio, which is in this case I was looking at 14.4 low gear. I think it should work. And then just in the top gear, when you're heavy, you run in 8 low instead of 8 high. And actually, I asked Cummins salesman to talk to Cummins about this. If it's gonna hurt the transmission to be running half a gear down, and he said you're not gonna damage anything. It's just that the transmission, the temperature can go up, the temperature of the oil. But I thought, wait a second. So if you're doing this at 1500 RPM in 8 low, it's even better for the transmission than 1500 RPM at 8 high, because there's going to be less wear and tear. So I guess he was talking about increased RPM. Let's say if you're doing 1400 in 8 high, and then all of a sudden you switch to 8 low, and now you're doing 1600, then of course the temperature would go up. But if you're keeping the RPM the same, I don't think you're going to hurt anything. So it's just a way of keeping it, you know, keeping the truck fuel efficient when you load it light or when you're empty. And based on my experience, I don't do that many miles. In 2 years, I have 135,000 miles now, and I do have lots of deadhead, you know. And so I'm thinking that 373 would be a good alternative to 391. And actually, when Cummins was asked about this, they said if you take a big Cummins, they recommend to keep RPM between 1500 and 1700 at the cruising speed of your choice. And they were showing for 65 miles an hour, they said, okay, somewhere around 1600 for 65. But it's just that it sounds very high, you know. And they were saying, yeah, 391 or 390 and 410 or 411 is something they would recommend. But that's like, they said 410 was the best performance, 3.91 or 3.90 was the balance, a good balance between performance and fuel economy. But this is my opinion, I'm sticking to it, so we'll see what happens. Let's cross the border. Somebody missed it while I'm using the four-way flashers. There was an overhead sign that said use four-way flashers in the fog because it's getting pretty bad. You cannot even see the river.